What's up you guys, this is Rob from Plays, and today on the Daily Grind, we're going to be doing something a little bit out of the box. Now, over on my YouTube community tab, wait, I forgot to call you guys fruits. Oh shit. Hey, what's up my crisp little string beans? This is Rob from Plays, and today on the Daily Grind, we're going to do something a little bit out of the box. Now, over on the community tab, I actually went ahead and ran a poll as to what kind of content you guys wanted to see next, and everybody came out of the woodwork and voted for revisit an underrated Warframe. However, I checked the comments before I jumped into anything, and I started to realize maybe the Warframes that I think are underrated are not necessarily the same ones that you think are underrated. So, as I kind of did my research on this topic, I started realizing that there are certain Warframes that are probably underrated maybe to veterans, maybe to new players, so I figured I would go ahead and go frame by frame and discuss whether I felt like a Warframe was underrated, overrated, or properly rated. So, in a collaborative effort, you can go ahead and toss your list down in the comments below and let me know if you feel like maybe we're matching, maybe we're not matching, and then we'll figure out from there exactly what frames we should cover. So let's go ahead and jump on in. And my throat is all of a sudden very, very raspy, like I just started smoking cigarettes right now. Now, Ashe. Ashe is definitely one of those Warframes that I feel like he's got a couple interesting tricks in his bag, but not really anything too crazy. I don't think he's underrated or overrated. I think he's right deserving of exactly where he's at. Moving on to Atlas. Okay, Atlas, I think he's super duper underrated. I don't know if it's the hate because of the fact that the man has no neck and like everybody just wants to come for the non-existent neck, but I really think he's great. He's got a lot of CC, he's got a good dose of survivability. Now, a lot of people talk about his endgame viability, but we don't really have an endgame in Warframe, and let's be real, I've seen it way too many times that everybody pieces out at wave 20 or 30 minutes into survival, and Atlas can easily do that. I've even gone an hour with him into MOT survivals, and it was easy peasy. So for me, I think that Atlas is a really, really underrated Warframe. And if you think he is too, down in the comments, let me know why you think he's super duper underrated. Banshee. Oh! Okay. So any veteran will tell you that Banshee is incredibly powerful. However, this is the frame that I think is super underrated by newer players. I don't think that they recognize exactly how much power Banshee has. I mean, legit, Rio loves soloing with her in MOT survival, and he does all this kind of weird, crazy shit. I'm more of a team player when it comes to my Banshee, so I love a little bit of that resonance and creating all the crazy weak spots and just stacking them. It's just so good. So I personally think that from a veteran's perspective, Banshee is appropriately rated because I laud her as one of the more powerful Warframes in game. So I don't know if you guys feel that same way, but for me, I think she's fantastic. Moving on to someone who I definitely think is underrated, but it's okay, because I think that Faven's gonna hit it with that skin and everybody's gonna be like, oh shit, he's got a Grack skin coming out, I'm gonna have to play him. Then all of a sudden everybody's gonna realize how fantastic he is. But Baruuk is just so freaking good, unless you're a bitter Mesa main and you're like, nobody can be as good as Mesa. But no, I think Baruuk is absolutely fantastic. He's got some great CC. He's got some, great damage reduction, literally damage and vulnerability. He's just fantastic. He's got a lot of great aspects to him and the ability to control, not only through his 2 and through his ultimate. I just think he's really, really great. Do I think he's the best Warframe in game? No. I need to clarify that. Do I think he's the best? No, but I do think he's very underrated. Now, Chroma. Chroma was one of those ones that I was like, oh. Like, I used to feel like he was overrated. Now, after he got his, I can't say got his dues, because I don't want anybody to think that I'm, like, bitter or anything about it. Like, they fixed the bug that made him overpowered. Now I feel like Chroma is appropriately rated. However, I do have to say one thing. I feel like a lot of Chroma mains out there are very bent on trying to get his 1 and his 4 changed because they want him to be as like top tier as like, let's say someone like Mesa or like someone super duper high end. They really want to like push him to like his, I'm like, listen, there are so many Warframes out there that have terrible ones, alright? And have at least only 2 really strong usable abilities and then some other niche abilities. I was like, you need to calm down. Rein it back in. Like, everybody's got a dud, okay? Not all abilities can be Beyonce. We need to have a Michelle, Kelly, and then that one bitch that got kicked out. Ember. Okay, here's the thing about Ember. She's great where she's great. Is she underrated? No. I think she's appropriately rated, and she's also not rated very high. And I feel like that's kind of appropriate. Do I hate Ember? No. I think that she is... Oh my god, this sounds bad. I think that she's a tool. I think that she is one of those Warframes that if you need to get an exterminate done real quick, like a low tier exterminate, even a mid tier exterminate, Ember can get the job done and get the job done pretty fucking quick. So for me, I value her for that. It's kind of like, how do you say this? You value a Phillips head screwdriver because when you need it, you need it. You can't use a butter knife. You know what I mean? She's really good where she's good. She's not really great too much elsewhere. So that's my personal stance. I think she's appropriately rated. I don't think that she's necessarily top tier. Equinox. Equinox is... I can't say she's underrated. I think she's appropriately rated too, and Equinox is appropriately rated pretty fucking high. Like, there's so many different ways that you can use Equinox, whether it's just like a nuke spammer, like just getting out all of those main procs, whether you use her as like CC in her night form, or even when you do her, what is that build that I really, the pacifying provocation, that build where she's kind of like a tank. I think Equinox is fantastic. I think she's appropriately rated, but she's appropriately rated pretty high. Excalibur. Let's highlight this one for the trolls. I think Excalibur, I think that he might be mildly underrated. I don't think that he's super duper underrated. I think by veterans, we forget that, you know, he's really good when you kind of like pair him up with his blind and his ultimate. You're able to get that CC in, you're able to get that stealth multiplier damage in. I think he's fantastic for that. So I think that we forget that he's, you know, better than average, but I think that he's overrated by newer players. I think that... And you can always hear it because it's always shing, 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 just constantly all over the place. And I think new players really get excited for all of those crazy blade waves, and he's just a really, really great experience for them. So I think that they overrate him, but I think that veterans and more dedicated players who've really run the gamut of other Warframes kind of underrate Excalibur a little bit. I won't say that like he's super duper underrated. I think he's just mildly underrated. Let's go to my boy Frost. I've been playing him and just trying him out lately, and I think he's a little bit boring, but I think he's good. I think he's boring, but he's good. I think that he is a signifier of old Warframe, just the old heritage of Warframe. He did get a recent zhuzh. His ultimate, you know, for those of you guys who have not played Frost in ages, does strip a little bit of armor, and if you kill anything that's frozen by the ultimate, they'll do a little explosion, so it's got a little mini Nova molecular prime going on over there. Also, his snow globes, you can stack them, and, you know, they have that ability to... What is it? They have that... Don't they have an invulnerability? Ooh, I don't use a snow globe much these days. Let's just say that. But I'm pretty sure you're able to, you know, do a good job at defending with that. So for me, I'm up in the air. I think he's properly rated. What do you guys think? Underrated? Properly rated? This one I'm a little bit willing to bend on. Khora. Oh, do I love me some Khora. I think she's appropriately rated, but I rate her pretty high. I don't see her being used as much, though, so maybe I think that she's appropriately rated, but everybody else might not rate her as highly as I think she is. Her 2 scales, like, fucking infinitely. She's like close range Ember on crack Like, she can get her numbers really freaking high. Her Spectre Edge, by the way, nobody really uses that as much as, like, I don't see anybody popping that out. I see her ultimate used, I see her 2 used. Those are like the 2 ones, but her Spectre Edge is actually pretty good at clustering enemies. I know it doesn't have the longest lifespan, like each of those little circle shield things, the little carousel shields, don't last for very long, but it's a really good way of like clustering in enemies. And I mean, you could take advantage of that with like long range saws and just like cleave through a bunch of enemies at once. I think she's great. I'm gonna say mildly underrated. What do you think? Am I crazy? Mildly underrated. Let's move on to Garuda. Okay, here's the thing about Garuda. I like her. I know a lot of people are not super duper fond of her, but I feel like her ultimate really was the gateway to a lot of other mechanics that we are currently seeing in game and things that we're going to see in the future. But I do feel like she's a 1.5 trick pony. It's very much ultimate and then, you know, lay into enemies, or ultimate, then you go ahead and use the orb from Dread Shield. That's really the only kind of gameplay rotation that I see with her. And when I was playing with her, because I was like, listen, she can't be, you know, that bad. Like, I gotta kind of like toy around with this. And for me personally, I was like using the same repetitive stuff over and over and over again. And I felt like her like gameplay was very niche. So for me, I know that people don't rate her as high as I think that they should rate her, so I guess I am saying that I do think that she's underrated. But I also can see why maybe they're not super duper enthused to play her, because she does feel a little bit limiting. That's just my opinion. Y'all are allowed to have opinions down in the comments section below. And then we have Harrow. Yo, if you don't think that Harrow is fucking boss, you're blind. Harrow is quite powerful. Like, he can be really, really finicky, but don't sleep on Harrow. Harrow is fucking powerful. Do I think he's overrated? Do I think he's underrated? Oh, I think he's underrated by lesser experienced players. I know, I hate whipping that one out because I think that a lot of people are like, oh my god, Rob, you're so elitist. No, I'm not. But he's definitely a skill-based Warframe, and I think that a lot of the players these days are not used to frames that require you to have some sort of skill. Ooh, that was not meant to be a burn, but it turned out to be one. And I think that he's really, really strong. I like Harrow a lot. Underrated by newer players or less skilled players. Let's put it like that. Hildryn. Hildryn does not get the love she deserves. I think that Hildryn is kind of fucking fantastic. It's their first experimentation with shield gating, and legitimately to me, I think that she's quite strong. Do I think she's the best Warframe in game? No, not necessarily. But I do feel like she is. I don't feel like people love her as much as they should love her. Her ultimate's a little bit wonky. I'll break it down like that. I really feel like you should be able to use your own weapons during her ultimate. It's a little bit wonky. And to anybody who thinks that her one is super duper powerful, are you fighting like level 15s and like unarmored targets? Is that what you're basing the power of her first ability on? Because it's not that strong. Some people are like, look at how much damage I'm doing. I'm like, is that a level 15 charger? Because that's what it looks like to me. You can't gauge power off of that. Talk to me after you've taken on like a high level, like a level 150 plus, like Corrupted Bombard. I'm just like, we'll discuss that. But me personally, I think that's the only thing that really peeves me about her, is her one is not that great, which is fine. Not everybody can be Beyonce, but I would love it if I could use her regular weapons on her ultimate. I think that's the only thing. So for me, mildly underrated. Hydroid, oh my god, super ultra underrated. Extremely underrated. I know he's like a meme guy. He's a meme guy for sure. But oh buddy, oh pal, the amount of damage you can do with him, the amount of control you can do with him. See, here's the thing. Everybody is like, you know, oh, the best CC is death. Bitch, I was saying that way fucking back in the day. I was like, the best status effect is death. Y'all can't say that I didn't say that before. But you know, they're saying the best CC is death for low levels. However, Hydroid, when you start getting into escalating missions, he has tools to bring damage and CC into that. Just saying, highly, highly underrated, but I'm pretty sure I did a video on him, so I'm not. Inaros. Inaros is one of those ones that I can't put my finger on. I'm gonna rely on you guys to tell me if you think that he's underrated or not, because I feel like he's a little boring, but he's a survivor. He's got good CC, he's got some cool support stuff, and he just lives, and he just lives, and he just lives. And I think with some of the mods that came out, specifically the Umber mods, and some of the other things that have been coming out as of late as well, like, he's just a liver. He's like Inaros Eternal, right? And I don't know if that's necessarily enough to make him underrated. Just because he lives, does that mean that he's good? Like, it's kind of like Inaros is the ultimate Unairu Warframe, like from that kind of standpoint, where it's almost like, oh, if you can outlive your enemies, you can defeat your enemies by outliving your enemies. And I'm like, but bitch, you live a long time, so I don't know how long. Are you trying to erode them away? Inaros, I don't know. I'm gonna stick to properly rated. Ivara. You know what? I can't talk shit about Ivara. I can't talk shit about Ivara because she is one of the few frames that you can almost mindlessly do a 2-hour solo survival in MOT with. Not even put in that much effort with. So, Ivara, you know what? I think those with remember we're talking about skill-based and like I'm gonna say mechanical-based players know how powerful she is. And I think that everybody also has a general idea of how powerful she is. Not underrated, not overrated, properly rated, but rated very high in niche areas. So I definitely like her. Khora. So I don't know if it's different for different platforms, because I've heard that on console you don't really see Khoras. I see a good amount of Khoras on PC. I'm just putting that out there. I see a good amount of Khoras on PC. Overwhelming amounts of Khora? No, I don't see an overwhelming amount of Khora, but I think she's strong. I think she is very strong. I would say that she is slightly underrated. Really good CC. Having 2 Kavats is a really good way of sustain. Now, am I saying that she's a tank? No, not saying that she's a tank. But 2 Kavats with their life transfer health ability, really, really good. Her 2, I think, is highly underrated. I forgot what it's called, but it's the one that kind of like latches enemies together. Because here's the thing, the higher the level of the enemy, the less that you can kill that enemy, right? But you can use that enemy as like a point, almost like a choke point, by like recasting your whip on it, and then it'll propagate, as DE says, another grab for you. So me personally, I think that her 2's underrated, and I think that's it. I think that she's properly rated, but her 2 people are sleeping on. That's what I'm putting out there. Moving on to Limbo. He's another one of those ones that I think is a little bit up in the air for me, because the people that know how to use him know how powerful he is. And the people that don't know how to use him fucking hate his guts. And there are some times where I think to myself, is this really an appropriate place for you to be using your Rift? You know what I mean? There's some times where I get judgy. On the Limbo and like his use, or the player's use of his abilities. So for me, I think that Limbo, underrated by the players who don't know how to use him. Overrated by the players who think they know how to use them. And then properly rated by the players who do actually know how to use them. Loki, fucking highly underrated. But I'd prefer to keep it that way. Listen, the first rule of the Loki Master Race is to not talk about the Loki Master Race. But we'll talk about it just a second, okay? I think that being a Loki main does give me a little bit of bias, but Loki has taught me a lot of things over time. How to mod weapons, how to navigate areas with lots of enemies in there and not get yourself killed. Because remember, invisibility does not equal invincibility. Okay? So it's kind of like learning how to deal with yourself, with other enemies, with players on the map that are very visible and like want to be your best friend and hang around you all the time and, you know, get you fucking riddled full of bullet holes because they're like, hey, hi Loki friend, bitch, I'm invisible, leave me alone. You're giving my position away. So for me, I think that he's underrated, but I think that's a good thing. I'm not going to talk about him anymore. Mag. Now, Mag is actually one of the ones that people had mentioned on, in the comment section. And I personally think Mag is like incredibly strong. But maybe that's the difference between me and the difference between like other players out there. I think it might be like a veteran thing and like a new player thing because she does have some complex mechanics that go along with her. I don't really think that they're that complex, but I think that other people might misunderstand them. I think she's very strong. When used correctly, she is one of the most powerful Warframes in game. And you get her as a potential starter frame. I'm just putting that out there. She's really, really strong. So for me, I personally think that she's properly rated as one of the most powerful Warframes in game. But I think that the community in general may not quite be there. So I'm going to say that she's underrated by the community, but not by me. I think she's fantastic. Mesa. Okay, I talk a lot of shit about Mesa, and I don't know what it is, but I feel like Mesa mains are extremely sensitive about Mesa. I think that it's like, they're like, no, you can never say anything wrong about my Mesa. She's the best Mesa ever. Mesa mains are like the new Chroma mains. You know how Chroma mains were like whiny and cryy? I think that after Chroma got his, you know, appropriately balancing, that they moved on to Mesa because she's OP as fuck. And then they kind of took on that, she's the greatest kind of bullshit again because they have small EP-ins. But the frame itself, not the community that surrounds the frame, I think she's properly rated as one of the most powerful motherfucking Warframes in game. I have one of my favorite builds on her. She's got one, like, I know a lot of people like doing the whole, like, shield refreshing thing on Mesa. I go full in, give me some Hunter's Adrenaline, give me some Rage. It's time. It's time for a showdown. Only one of us is gonna walk out of here alive, and guess what? You shoot me, you giving me fuel to shoot you back. So for me, I really enjoy her. As much shit as I give other people for it, because there's some aggressive ass individuals when it comes to Mesa mains. And I'm like, yes, I get it. You like the booty. And you will defend that booty until you die. But I'm saying you don't need to be that serious about it. Really, it's just a Warframe. Now, speaking of booties, it's a little pert, okay. We have Mirage. I think she's underrated. But here's the thing. I don't think that people... I think that she's underrated for specific game modes. And I think that, especially with her Explosive Ledger main, like, that is one of the most underrated augments in game. I love it. I think it's really, really powerful. And I think that she's excellent for some escalating missions. Of course, maybe not ones that require super duper, like, high levels of survivability. But I think that she is fairly underrated. Not mildly, but fairly underrated. The things that she can do, she's quite good at. Especially when it comes to combining her with Zaws, because you guys know that when it comes down to like the melee weapons or the projectile weapons out there, there's only two firing from the doppelgangers. But when you get her with melee Zaws, right, especially ones that can apply a lot of status, condition overload just gets nasty because she gets all four doppelgangers going around like, this good, she's really good. You just have to understand weapon mechanics in order to do it. Nekros. Yup. I think that Nekros is overused, but he doesn't get the love for, like, how good he is. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like when you have somebody who's really, really good in one field, but is also really good in another field, but they don't ever talk about him. in the other field. They only use him for farming. But yo, Nekros is like a tank. Nekros can tank it the fuck up. You give him, he's got one of my favorite builds on him too. He can tank it up, and you give him some really strong weapons, and boy, he's just running through there. He's just like, hi, oh, you were shooting at me? Ba-boom. Me and my squad say hello and goodbye. We're moving along now. Oh, and give me your loot and then some more. He's like vicious. Do I want to say he's underrated? I think he's underrated when it comes to his tankiness. And I also need to fix his fashion frame. I don't know what was happening here, but this needs to be adjusted. This is a disgrace to him. I think I was just exploring to see if the Saturn 6 armor fit on him, and I think with the right coloration it would. So I definitely think Nekros is underrated for the other end of his spectrum. I think he's great. Like, I think everybody lauds him for his ability to make more loot, but he's more than just a loot monster, okay? Alright, moving on to Nezha. He's best boy. He's best boy. I think that everybody loves him for the memes. Like, I think that he's a very memey Warframe. I think that he's finally transcended. Ooh, is that like a pun that's not meant to be a pun? Listen, just to refresh your memory, Nezha is based off of the third Lotus Prince, who's supposed to be a young boy. So if you asking why he ain't all butch and manly and shit, then that's why, because he's meant to be a little child. And if you trying to come after him and saying, oh, why is he a trap? You being trapped by a young boy. Fix your life. Alright? Nezha, his recent rework is just fantastic. I think that he's appropriately lauded. I think that everybody appreciates him the right amount. He's right there on his rating, and I think that people rate him fairly high. I hate his speed, love his fire feet. That's the thing. I don't like the speed portion, but I like the fire feet portion. Like, I'd like to be able to walk normally. But I do love that. His augments are really fucking cool. Yeah, I'm gonna say he's properly rated, but he's rated high. Nidus. Some people are gonna be mad at me. Overrated. I think Nidus is overrated. I think he is overrated. But not by much. Let's put it out that way. I think Nidus is overrated, but not by much. I think that people who like him a little too much, but it's kind of like one of those things where I'm like, yeah, I mean, get it. You know, get it. The thing about it is he's really, really good for escalating missions, but he's not very good. He's kind of like the opposite of Ember. You know what I mean? Like, Ember's really good at those low-level fast clears. Nidus is really, really good at dealing damage to higher-level targets, really building up his stacks. I think he's fantastic for that, but I personally feel that there are other frames that I would rather be playing aside from Nidus. However, his theme is really dope. I'm gonna say just slightly overrated, but not by much. I still think that he deserves a lot of the praise that he gets. I still think that his design is just gorgeous. He's got some really cool synergies, but I also think that he's just slightly overrated. Oh, you know who's underrated as fuck? Nova. Oh my god, what am I doing? I think I was playing around with some of these fashions and I was not nailing it. This is why I don't always publish fashion frame videos, because sometimes I need to revisit and make sure that I'm comfortable with what I'm putting out. I love the skin, just to let you know, I love this skin, but maybe that coral... Oh, this was when I was fucking around with the coral palette. Or not the coral palette, the rollers palette. I know. Alright, so when it comes down to Nova. Alright, so for those of you guys who don't know, she has her one ability. This was never, like, explicitly stated, but all of the little orbs that float around her give her 5% damage reduction. And I think that it caps out at 85 or 90%. It's a pretty high percentage. It's a pretty high percentage, and I was actually able to do, like, a little bit of a tanky build on her using, like, Arcane Grace and using Narrow-Minded to really get as many of those orbs around and keep them close to her so that she's not... Listen, can't give all your orbs away to just any of the surrounding people. You gotta keep them to yourself, you know? It's like eggs in the vagine. You only have so many. Don't waste them all. It's a finite amount, Nova. But no, I think she's fantastic. I think that she is maybe slightly underrated. No, I'm just gonna call her underrated. I think that she's underrated because of the fact that she can CC, but not only CC, she can also damage multiply at the same time. No, she's fucking underrated as fuck because she can speed up a wave, she can slow down a wave depending on the build that she wants to use. She can use antimatter absorb to like draw in enemy fire. Literally, if you're good, you can use that as an umbrella to absorb enemy attacks. You can fucking use that antimatter absorb as a personal like shield. You just got to be really, really good with it. So that she's got her damage reduction. Antimatter drop is crazy. Yo, Nova Prime, hella underrated. Underrated as fuck. All right, moving on to somebody who's just rated and not rated very high. No. I think she's mildly underrated, but she's also not rated very high. I will say this about Nyx. She's not a joy to play. She's not one of those frames that I get excited to play, but do I think she's a terrible frame? No. I think she's got a good balance of abilities, if not slightly wonky and weird. Like, I think that those who like her can get a lot of use out of her. Her 2 being able to armor shred and do it pretty well, I have to say is a great addition. I just never really got, I mean, Chaos, like, keeps the heat off of you. Her new passive is being able to evade anybody that's under her influence. So for me, she's rated, no, she's slightly underrated, but she's also not rated very high on my list. Does that make sense? It's like people like her less than they should, but I don't necessarily know if they should like her a lot. I don't, she does the job, okay? Let me just put it out there. She does the job. Do I just enjoy doing the job with her? No, that also sounded like a sex thing. It really wasn't. Moving along, Oberon. I had to pause for a moment because legitimately in my brain, I think that he's pretty well lauded, right? I feel like he's appropriately rated. Maybe even slightly underrated, but not by much. Like, his CC ability, his ability to strip armor, his ability to grant, like, survivability buffs to his teammates, passively keep everybody healed, like, make ally status immune. Like, I think that he's pretty properly lauded. And then with the recent addition of Smite Infusion, now he can do radiation buffs to his teammates, so everybody is like using him for Eidolons and shit like that. I think that he's properly rated, but just a teensy bit slightly underrated. But you know what? That's a support frame. Support frames, I think, are always just a teensy bit underrated. Octavia. Oh, this was another roller palette experiment. You can see, when I do experiments with, like, palettes, alright, they don't always win. That's why I don't always publish those specific frames. I like the coral color, but the energy color was a little bit bunk, so let's just ignore the fashion there for a moment. Rob experiments, and then Rob never, like, fixes it when he goes back. Octavia is another Loki-like frame. I think that she's underrated, but we also want her to stay underrated. We also don't want to talk about her. We don't want to give her any praise because of the fact that we'd rather never see her touched. I'd rather her just continuously be in the state that she's currently at and nobody ask any fucking questions. Underrated, but let's keep it that way because we're back to Loki Master Race rules. We don't fucking talk about Octavia. Revenant. Oh, I want to say Revenant is appropriately rated. What do you guys think? He's a bit boring to play. He survives, and I know that there's, like, I think that there's a bug with him right now when he recasts his second ability, that there's, like, a gap in his survivability, like, that enemies can kill you within that little gap period, which I think is more of a bug than anything, if I'm going to be honest with you, and something that DE should probably address. His ultimate got fixed, but his ultimate adapts to enemies. His wall thing where he can, like, suck life from things. A part of me is like, Yeah, I get it, you can suck life from things, but legitimately, you're using your 2. You shouldn't be taking any damage. What is happening? Your 2 is recastable. Why do you need an ability that lets you suck the life from things when literally you don't need to suck the life from anything because you're invincible? So, I don't know. The little wall thing is just not working for me. But aside from that, I don't hate him. I don't hate him. I think he's appropriately rated. I think that he's rated somewhere in the middle. What do you guys think? Rhino. I can't speak on Rhino. I tried to play Rhino just a little bit ago, and to be completely honest with you, he does the job, but I don't know if I like the way that he does the job. I think that he's slightly overrated, but I don't think that he's rated super duper high. Like, he's got good CC, he's got good team buffs, he can have status immunity using his 2, and everybody always loves to talk about the fact, oh, but you can stack up so much of his armor, blah. Well, here's the thing that I have to say about his goddamn fucking iron skin. I'm just gonna put it out on the table for you guys. You can stack up a lot of armor when it doesn't matter, and that's fantastic because then you only have to cast it once. But when it does matter, you cannot stack that armor fast enough. Okay? Like at higher levels, when enemies are literally ripping chunks out of your life, that armor does not go up fast enough. So I'm just putting it out there. I don't know. I think he mildly overrated but not rated high. Saryn. She's appropriately rated, and she's rated very high. And I think that we all know that she is rated very high. She just can clear out enemies. Like, Saryn is one of those Warframes that can shut a Mesa up. Maybe Saryn doesn't have the survivability, but it's okay. Everything's already dead. Like, that's the kind... Like, Saryn is that bitch. Saryn is that bitch. But I don't think that Saryn mains are as loud as Mesa mains. I think that Saryn mains are like... Oh, you think you're powerful? How you gonna say you that powerful when you're doing 20% of the team's damage and I'm doing 70% because these enemies aren't even getting out of their spawn location, sweetie. They didn't even get to that little bottleneck that you set up. They couldn't even get out of there because legitimately they're already dead. And then Sarah is just like, just off in the corner. So let's move on to Trinity. Trinity, somebody had mentioned that they feel like Trinity is extremely underrated. And I feel like Trinity lost some of her shine. But I think that she is pretty fucking underrated. Abating Link, I know a lot of people love it. I personally can't get into it as much. I just use armor bypassing weapons. She can become extremely tanky. She can heal a team. She can do energy vampire stuff. There's a lot of builds that work on Trinity that would not work on a lot of other Warframes. I always see people saying Zeneric and Quick Thinking. That's, to me, majority of the time when I see that, I'm like, oh, so you're a noob. But Trinity is one of those frames that can pull off the quick thinking bullshit. Trinity is... I think she's extremely underrated. I don't know. You guys let me know. She can do a lot. Valkyr Prime. Or Valkyr. I think she's appropriately rated. I think that her ultimate needs a little bit of work. I think that it's just too close range, in my opinion. I think that she might need a little bit more, like, you know how whenever they do Wolverine in video games, he always has his claws coming out, right? But they always give his attacks a little bit extra range. You know how they always give that kind of like that slash effect kind of range around him? But you know, his claws don't really go out that far. But you're happy that they gave him some distance anyway, so he's not always having to fight ranged enemies super duper close. I feel like that's a treatment that Valkyr needs for her ultimate. See, here's the thing. I don't know if people dislike her. I think that she's fine. Do I think that she's great? I don't think that she's great. Do I think she deserves a little bit more love? I do think she deserves a little bit more love. But do I think she's underrated or overrated? I think she's appropriately rated, but she's not rated. She's like medium low? Medium low? Or medium? Somewhere there. Vauban. Vauban, here's something that's going to be interesting. A really, really interesting chat. Vauban, I feel, reflects the state of Warframe. Ooh. And when I say that, I feel like I'm talking about specifically the meta of Warframe. When there is difficulty in Warframe, Vauban shines. When there is no difficulty in Warframe, Vauban is obsolete. Back in the day, when there were difficult enemies and we were like sitting there in missions for a long time, Vauban was king. Vauban was the king. But the fact that Warframe hasn't leaned into any difficult content, and not only that, they've also made their difficult content CC immune or resistant to CC. That's kind of like one of those things where I'm like, oh, okay, so you just fucking up Mr. Vauban then. Because for a while, CC frames were king and queen and beautiful in between. And then they kind of were like, oh, no, these more difficult enemies are resistant to CC. So it's like, so you really just want us to lean into damage frames? I don't know. But Vauban to me is in limbo. That's where Vauban is to me. Vauban reflects the state of the game, and right now the state of the game is no difficulty. Back in the day, Vauban was appropriately rated, and he was higher tier. Now I feel like he's appropriately rated because of the fact that the game isn't difficult. So that's my standpoint on that. Volts. I want to say mildly underrated. I bet you didn't see that coming. I think you saw the hate that was seething in my bones for a moment, but I think that he's slightly underrated. I think Discharge is great for damage in like tight corridors like ESO kind of stuff. We've seen his numbers really be good there. But really where I think he shines is his shields. His shields are duration-based invulnerability. A good player knows how to take advantage of those. They also help with critical damage. Like, his shields are, like his 4 is what I won't say a newer player would use, but his 4 is like what you use when you want to play him brainlessly. His 2 is what you use when you really that bitch. You know the mechanics. You drop those 2s. Is it 2? It's a shield, right? 2 is a shield? 3 is a shield? I don't remember. 3 is a shield. It's his shield. That's what I'm talking about. If you use the shields a lot, you understand the mechanics. Wisp. I want to say slightly overrated, but only for the booty. I'm just going to leave it there. I think that Wisp's buffs are really great. I think that her invisibility is great. I think that she's great overall, but I think y'all are asthmatized. Y'all have been, like, hypnotized by the ass. And y'all love her so much for that ass. She's like Nezha. That's what it is. Nezha is like best boy. Wisp is kind of like best girl. Because everybody's like, that... Listen, y'all craving some of that peach cobbler. And I mean, I can understand. I think Wisp is a really cute model. I think that overall, her kit is really strong. Her ultimate is a little, but yeah. That's where I stand on Wisp. I think she's slightly overrated, but just for the ass. Wukong! Juicy. Appropriately rated, and rated pretty high. He had a really great transformation. I enjoyed him a lot. I think he's an absolute fantastic frame. His new Defy is really strong. He's got 2 different ways for, like, when you fight enemies, and you're like, nope. You're just like, nope. And you're fine. And I think that he's absolutely fantastic now. His damage output is pretty strong. His big stick, I think his Primal Fury maybe could use a little bit of a stat tweak to make it a little bit better, but I don't necessarily think it's a make it or break it whether he gets that or not for him to be a really great frame. I think he's appropriately rated, and I think he's rated fairly high. Last is Zephyr. Zephyr, I personally think, has one of the strongest abilities in the game paired with one of the weakest kits in the game. Okay, I'm going to say it right now, and you guys are going to get mad at me. Airburst isn't that bad. It's not great, but it's also not that bad. It's definitely not great. The issue is her number 1. Her number 1, like, just let the girl fucking fly, y'all. Can we just let her fly? I don't know what... this is one of those things where it's just like... that one Warframe that I don't remember her name that has the sucky ability. I don't know why they don't just fix it. I just say let Zephyr fucking fly. This bitch got, like, she literally has feathers. She literally has feathers. Let her fly. Hovering is not the same thing as flying. I'm just putting that out there. But her 3 is her turbulence is really powerful. It's a really fucking powerful ability. Tornadoes got a little bit better when you could steer it, but I still think it's a pain in my ass. Her 2 is not terrible. It's really, really great at, like, pushing enemies off of a point if you need to get them off of a point, like a defense objective. Do I think it's great? No. Do I think it's like an interim ability that they need to like revisit and make better? Yes. Her 1 is the issue for me. So I'm torn because I don't think she gets the credit. I think that everybody thinks that she's super duper trash, but I don't think she's that trash. I think she's got a lot of stored potential that you can get at. So let me know how you guys feel, because I've been rambling for quite some time now about overrated and underrated Warframes. Leave all of your feelings down in the comments below. Leave your own list of overrated or underrated, and then we'll do like a little bit of a cross comparison to see exactly where we all land when it comes to our overrated and underrated scale. Let me know. Wisp's ass, is that pushing her into the overrated area? Or do you think that it's rated appropriately? Nezha's ass. No, he's underage. I'm saying no to that. Anyway, that's going to be it for me for now. Oh God, this video is going to get demonetized. So as always, love somebody, hurt nobody, and touch your body. Don't forget, string beans are actually fruit. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.